Kate, the Future Queen, by Katie Nicholl. Chapter 7. The Breakup. It was a bizarre experience, and one Kate still hadn't gotten used to. As she flicked through the news channels, there was her boyfriend, leading every story. On his first solo overseas tour, William was in New Zealand representing the Queen, and as he laid a poppy wreath in Wellington to mark the 60-year commemoration of the end of World War II, Kate watched with a mixture of respect and disbelief. This was exactly the situation that made their relationship so surreal, and although she had been catching up with William by email, there had not yet been a chance to talk on the phone for any length of time. It was the first time that they had been away from each other since graduating a few weeks earlier, and their time together at St. Andrews already seemed distant. They had both agreed that they wanted to make their relationship work and didn't want to be apart for too long, so Kate planned to join William and his best friend, Thomas Van Straubenzee, in Kenya in July. They were going to Lua Downs, and never having been to Kenya before, Kate was looking forward to the trip, but she was also apprehensive. William's friendship with Jekka was still a sensitive subject, even though he had assured Kate they had only ever been friends. Kate and Jekka had met at William's 21st birthday party and then again more recently at the wedding of William's old friend Hugh Van Cutsum. The newspapers, which had already labelled Kate and Jekka love rivals, had had a field day when Jekka, dressed in a poncho and cowboy hat, sat just a few pews ahead of Kate, rather more dignified in a cream suit and a black fascinator. Now, the very fact that William was taking Kate to Kenya was enough to allay any major fears on her part. Kate fell in love with Lua, where they stayed in the $2,300 per night Maasai-inspired Illinois Ngwesi Lodge in the middle of the Mukogodo Hills. It had spectacular views of the majestic snow-capped peak of Mount Kenya, which the couple enjoyed from their outdoor bathroom and the canopied four-poster bed that could be wheeled out onto the terrace underneath the stars. Days were spent outdoors, too. Situated next to the Ngare River, Lua Downs is the natural habitat of the lion, elephant, rhino, buffalo, and the biggest herd of the world's endangered species of Grevy's zebra. While William tracked the endangered beasts, Kate, Jekka, and Thomas were taken into the bush. Each morning, as dawn broke, they set off in the safety of a guarded 4x4 safari truck over the waking plains of the savannah. Kate had brought her camera and took advantage of being so close to the wildlife. There were also plenty of other things to do while William worked, and she played tennis on the clay court with Jekka or swam in the saltwater pool. At sunset, William would join his friends for cocktails while a chef prepared freshly caught fish. Dining al fresco as the African sun set was a magical experience, and any previous coolness between Kate and Jekka soon melted. Post-holiday, William's future was already mapped out. Like his brother, Harry, he would be enrolling at the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst in 2006. Before that, in fall 2005, he was to undertake a series of work placements, including 2 weeks of land management in the Peak District, on the Chatsworth estate owned by the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire, followed by 3 weeks at the Bank of England and the head offices of HSBC Bank. It was, he reluctantly told friends, time to join the real world. Similarly, after 4 years as a carefree student, Kate also had her future to think about, and she duly sent out her CV to a handful of London art galleries so that she could put her history of art degree to some good use. Finding somewhere to live wasn't a problem. Her parents had bought an expensive apartment in Chelsea before she graduated and had given Kate the keys. Located on Old Church Street off the fashionable and sought-after King's Road, the 2-bedroom pied-à-terre was perfectly positioned and had been beautifully furnished by her mother. The plan was for Pippa to move in with Kate when she graduated from Edinburgh. Kate's apartment was only a short drive from William's living quarters at Clarence House, By now, she was a regular visitor, and when she pulled up in her VW Golf, Kate was waved through the cast-iron gates without needing to stop for a security check. She even had a parking space reserved next to William and Harry's in the gravel courtyard. Kate was beginning to get to know Harry, who had been at Sandhurst since May and was full of tales of the tough training he had had ahead of his older brother. Unlike Pippa, who had come to visit at St. Andrews, Harry hadn't visited his brother, but he had met Kate many times at Balmoral on shooting weekends. Although they got along well, it was rather crowded when all three of them were at Clarence's house. Charles and Camilla had the run of the large, four-story building, while William and Harry shared a small wing, consisting of a functional kitchen with a dining table for entertaining, a living area, a bedroom each, and a small gym. In between looking for a job, Kate filled her days shopping on the King's Road, meeting friends, and seeing William. Because of the ongoing intense speculation about the seriousness of her relationship with William, she had to quickly come to terms with the fact that she was a constant target for the paparazzi. She only had the benefit of the prince's protection officers when she was with him, and so she had to deal with the unwanted attention alone. It was like navigating an obstacle course, and it seemed there was always a photographer ready to pounce, whether she was leaving her apartment to go to the shops or heading to Buckingham Palace to swim at the pool, a privilege she now enjoyed. The paparazzi soon worked out where she lived, shopped, and worked out, and she was photographed nearly every day. William was aware of the situation and anxious about it. He had seen firsthand how his mother had been harassed by the paparazzi and was determined that Kate not be subjected to the same treatment. At his request, she was given a hotline to the press office at St. James's Palace and the mobile number of the Prince of Wales's head of press, Paddy Harverson. We had been introduced to Kate early on, and we were instructed from the outset to give her every support possible, said a senior press aide. She was obviously the subject of a lot of press interest and intrusion from the paparazzi. William said we had a duty of care to her and her family, and so we advised her on how to deal with the cameras. We told her to smile at the photographers so that it would be a better picture. She was given advice on how to manage the media, and we were there to support her if there was a crisis. At St. Andrews, the media agreement had meant that the couple was sheltered, but out in the real world, Kate found herself in new territory. She was polite, but she never posed for the cameras, having been told by courtiers not to engage with the media. Earlier that summer, she and her mother had attended the horse trials at Gatcombe Park, Princess Anne's country house. Without William, Kate's attendance at any event was now big news, and she was quickly surrounded by the press pack. Dressed in a cowboy hat, brown corduroy jacket, and fitted jeans, the photographers addressed her as Kate and asked her to pose for a photograph. "If I do it now, then I'll have to keep doing it," she explained. It was the first time she had ever addressed the media, and her response was smooth and calculated. It was the clearest indication yet that she was being given some very effective media training behind the scenes. Bizarrely, she had been advised to watch footage of the late Princess of Wales in order to learn how to deal with the paparazzi, notorious for being aggressive in their pursuit of a picture, taunting their prey in order to get a response. At the palace, there was a concerted effort not to allow Kate to be exposed to the same ruthless treatment. In a further show of support, Kate was also given access to the Prince of Wales's London-based legal team, Harbertall and Lewis. The lawyers were instructed to write to newspaper editors before the year was out to express their concerns about how much Kate was being photographed. When a German magazine, Das Neue, pinpointed the exact location of Kate's London home, William was livid. Although the intrusive photography was bad enough, this was, he fumed, an unacceptable invasion of Kate's privacy and posed a serious problem for the prince's security team. William was often at Kate's apartment, and now it was a matter of public record that his chauffeur-driven Range Rover could be seen parked in the narrow street. Panic buttons linked to the local police station were installed at Kate's apartment as an additional security measure. When it came to going out in London, William and Kate had their own way of dealing with the paparazzi. As they had done at St. Andrews, they never held hands in public. In fact, they never acted like a couple. At a private black-tie gala dinner in Whitehall that October, they sat at separate tables in order to not be photographed together and, according to guests, barely spoke to each other all evening. It was the same during a night out at the Marmelange nightclub in London a couple of weeks later. William was enjoying himself on the dance floor, while Kate sat with her friends. They arrived and left separately, according to the British show business journalist Emily Maddick, who was at the club that night observing them. William was in very jovial spirits, chatting and drinking, she recalled. Close to midnight, he hit the dance floor with some of his friends. He was having a great time dancing to Don Cha-Cha by the Pussycat Dolls, and he knew the words. He was loving it, but Kate was sitting in the VIP area with friends, cradling a glass of white wine. She didn't seem in the mood to dance, and William left the club separately and said he was on his way to a house party. You would never know they were together. They made a point of keeping a low profile, and although the press speculated that the romance might be on the rocks, the truth was William and Kate were tighter than ever. Not acting like a couple when they were out was their way of keeping private what was special, even though it was not always easy for Kate. By November, she was still jobless, but she approached her parents with a business proposal to launch a children's clothing line on the Party Pieces website. They talked the idea through that Christmas when she went home. Carol thought it was an excellent plan of action. Children's t-shirts had always sold well on the site, and she believed that a clothing line had the potential to be successful. Kate loved being back with her family at Christmas, and even though they were no longer children, Kate, Pippa, and James still opened stockings on Christmas morning before making a start on the Christmas puzzle, a family tradition. Ever since they were little, Michael had dressed up on Christmas Day, and this year he donned a sumo wrestler's outfit, which had the family in stitches. On Boxing Day, the day after Christmas, Kate packed her bags and drove to Norfolk to join William at the Sandringham shoot. She had stayed at the royal estate several times with William and their friends for shooting weekends, but she had never been invited for Christmas when the entire royal family was in attendance. William thought it better not to stay in the main house, where Kate might find things a bit daunting, so he arranged for them to spend several nights at Wolferton Marshes, an isolated cottage on the estate. She was thrilled to be part of the festivities and was now an accomplished shot herself. Diana never enjoyed her stays at royal residencies, complaining that William and Harry were always out killing things, but Kate loved the sport and seemed to settle in well. After seeing the new year in together, William and Kate boarded a plane on New Year's Day for Closters. The trip was an early birthday present for Kate before William started Sandhurst, and this time he didn't care who saw them on the slopes, as he kissed her passionately. They would not see each other for 5 weeks once he enrolled at Sandhurst, and they made the most of every minute together. On their return to London with the days ticking down, Kate threw a champagne send-off for William at Clarence House with his closest friends, and then on January 8, 2006, William left London to begin his army training. Driven down by his father, while closely followed by his security team carrying the prerequisite ironing board, he was welcomed by the Major General. After signing into Blenheim Company, William was shown to his sparse, soulless room, which overlooked Old College. Not wanting to overshadow his brother's arrival, which was captured by the waiting media, Harry was not there to greet William but made his way to his room later. Now that he was in his 3rd term, Harry took great pleasure in reminding his older brother that his higher rank meant that William would have to salute him. While William knuckled down to intensive physical and mental training, which would prepare him for his future career with the military, Kate started putting the wheels in motion for her new business plan. She worked on a business strategy and started sourcing reasonably priced, high-quality children's clothing. She traveled around the country looking at samples and flew to Milan where, using her basic Italian, she found a reliable manufacturer. That summer, the press reported that she had the backing of clothing label Viella, which wanted to partner on the project, but the rumored venture came to nothing. Kate realized that starting a business was not easy, and she hit obstacles early on. She decided not to register the company with Companies House because it would mean publishing personal details as well as annual accounts. Her parents helped where they could, and Kate had some savings to get the business off the ground, but by the summer, she was operating the business at a loss. She confided to Jamie Murray Wells, an entrepreneur and close friend of William's, that she was struggling to break even. "The business is running into debt, but I really want to prove to my dad that I can do this without asking him for any money," she said. Kate decided that she might be better off working for a well-established fashion company instead. She was rumored to have been approached by the design house Ralph Lauren, which was interested in making her an ambassador. According to one former employee, it was an idea, but it never took off. In the end, Lady Gabriella Windsor was appointed to the role. Kate was also rumored to have applied for a job at the Harrods store in Knightsbridge, London, as a buyer's assistant in the fashion department, but again, it came to nothing. Although she was eager to carve a career for herself, not having the commitment of a 9-to-5-day job rather suited her. As a royal girlfriend, she was largely at William's beck and call, and she fitted in seeing him around his timetable. She also had a busy social life, constantly whizzing up and down the M4 motorway to London to see her friends. She was often spotted browsing in clothes shops in Kensington and Chelsea and attending glitzy nights out with William on the rare occasions he had time off from Sandhurst. They attended the Boodles Boxing Ball in June, a charity night for which some of their closest friends were competing in the ring, and the opening of a new shop at Bluebird, the fashionable restaurant and cafe on the King's Road, owned by the retail tycoons John and Belle Robinson, friends of the Middletons. Kate seemed to revel in her role, and even without William, she still mingled in royal circles. Earlier in the year, Kate had caused quite a stir when she was photographed in the royal box at the Cheltenham Gold Cup with Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall. It was the first time she had appeared with the family at a public event without William, appearing happy and relaxed as she chatted with Camilla and her children, Tom and Laura. Kate's warm rapport with Charles had intensified, and the prince had grown even fonder of Kate. He loved it when William brought Kate to Highgrove for occasional weekends and had given them a set of keys and allowed them to share a room. Charles was like any other father. He was very kind and hospitable towards Kate from the beginning, said a senior member of the household. He was delighted William had found such a lovely girlfriend, and she was made to feel at home. Charles loved the fact that Kate enjoyed coming to Highgrove and to Birkhall in Scotland, where he would take her hill walking and deer stalking. It gave him great pleasure that they could share those pursuits. Birkhall, the 18th-century mansion that the Queen Mother gifted to Charles when she died, holds a great deal of significance for the Prince of Wales. Charles would escape from Gordonstown, the Scottish boarding school he hated, to see his grandmother at the 3-story house on the Queen's 50,000-acre Deeside estate when he was a boy. The place, he said, had a soul-refreshing effect, and he refused to move the 11 grandfather clocks from the dining room. Nor would he refurbish the moth-eaten tartan curtains, despite Camilla's protests. Camilla, meanwhile, took it upon herself to advise Kate on royal etiquette. The Duchess was skilled in royal courtship, and she encouraged Kate to work her diary around William's engagements. Kate made sure she kept the weekends free so she and William could be together. Often, they stayed at her parents' house or at Highgrove with Charles and Camilla. They also had a close-knit group of friends, and there was always a shooting party to be enjoyed in the countryside. That Easter, to celebrate William's success in making it through the notoriously tough first term at Sandhurst, Kate had arranged for them to go to Mustique, an island in the Caribbean, where the Robinsons owned a luxury villa. They generously waived the $12,000 per week rental charge and told William and Kate to make themselves at home. William had longed to visit the private island for some time. His great-aunt, Princess Margaret, had owned a villa there where she conducted a long-standing affair with her young lover, Roddy Llewellyn, in the 1970s. Better known now as a private playground for rock stars and A-list celebrities who want five-star luxury and complete privacy, the paparazzi are banned, and every visitor is vetted by the island's 25-strong security team. Described by the fashion designer Tommy Hilfiger as endlessly social yet perfectly private, Mustique is the epitome of luxury. It has its own private airport, 9 stunning beaches, and some of the world's most sumptuous villas, one of which has its own golf course. There is just one hotel on the island, the Cotton House, and a guest house. The Robinsons' hillside home, a 5-bedroom stone mansion overlooking the famous Macaroni Beach and the sparkling turquoise Caribbean Sea, was quite simply paradise. The villa came with its own maid and gardener, as well as a cook who, alerted to the fact that the future King of England was coming to stay, had the couple's favourite foods flown in from St. Vincent ahead of their arrival. Kate and William loved it from the outset. They slipped anonymously into island life, zipping around on golf buggies and sunbathing on the tranquil beaches. With a health spa, world-famous equestrian centre, and a busy tennis club, there was plenty to do. According to Elizabeth Saint, who runs the island's equestrian centre where William and Kate went riding, they love it here, they can be natural, and that's very precious for the island and everyone that lives here. We value their friendship. Mustique is a haven and sanctuary for them because no one ever talks about what goes on here. In addition to riding horses along the shoreline, Kate and William played beach volleyball and chilled out by the infinity pool at their villa, beneath the shade of the poolside gazebos. They challenged the Virgin Group tycoon, Sir Richard Branson, to games of tennis, appreciative of the loan of his catamaran, on which they enjoyed romantic dinners à ducks. Some evenings they ventured to Basil's Bar, a rustic beach shack on stilts overlooking the sea. Wearing his famed kaftan, Basil Charles, one of the island's most exuberant characters, poured William's vodka and cranberry while Kate enjoyed a chilled pina colada. They danced into the night, and according to one merrymaker, William was so relaxed he joined in a karaoke night and sang along to Elvis Presley's Suspicious Minds. William and Kate loved Mustique and promised they would come back, recalled a regular visitor to the island. They were left alone to enjoy their holiday and no one bothered them. They could be themselves, and they really got into the spirit of Mustique. It can be as pretentious as you make it, but William and Kate were very relaxed. They were always dressed down and often turned up at Basil's barefoot. Back in Britain, the romantic getaway prompted further engagement rumours, much to the amusement of the pair, who had started a wall chart in the kitchen at Clarence House to document the number of times the press speculated they would tie the knot. There were, however, reports that aides had started earmarking potential dates for a royal wedding around the calendar of the senior royals. It is not unusual for significant events to be planned months in advance, but St. James's Palace press office denied an engagement was imminent, insisting there were no plans for the couple to get married. When William and Kate attended Laura Parker Bowles's wedding to Harry Lopez in Wiltshire later that summer, there was no ring on Kate's finger. If Kate was expecting a proposal, she didn't let her disappointment show. In fact, during the summer of 2006, the relationship seemed stronger than ever. The couple's fears about conducting their romance in the real world were largely allayed by packing in as many holidays as William's Sandhurst timetable allowed. In August, they headed to the party island of Ibiza to stay with Kate's uncle, Gary, who gave William, Kate, Pippa, James, and a few of their friends, including Guy Pelly, the keys to his $9 million Spanish villa, La Maison de Bang Bang. With gold engraving on the external wall, it is a fortress-turned-party palace and a rather unlikely destination for royalty, but Kate and William had a ball. Gary, who knew the island well, chartered a yacht so that they could sail across the sea to nearby Formentera. Surprisingly for such a popular vacation destination, William and Kate were able to explore the island in relative anonymity and spent a night at the Pasha nightclub without being recognized. We organized a whole itinerary for them, including going over to a neighboring island on a boat. They've got mud baths and they were all rolling in the healing mud, which they thought was great fun, although it was particularly smelly, Gary recalled in a magazine interview. Tanned and toned in their matching white bikinis, Kate and Pippa performed expert backflips into the azure waters. Back at the villa, Gary arranged for William to learn how to mix music. A friend of mine was teaching William how to mix on the DJ decks and he performed to the whole family. William loved the place. He said it was so much fun. Carol told me afterwards that they all had a brilliant time. William had enjoyed being on vacation with Kate and her siblings, and just as Kate had been welcomed into the royal residences, William felt at home with her family, known by friends as the Mass Middletons, because they spent so much time together. It was entirely different from William's home life, and the couple often went to Oakacre for Sunday roast dinners. Carol made a point of stocking William's favorite red wine, and William was expected to help clear the plates after the meal, along with everyone else. Sitting around the family table and catching up over an informal meal was a treat the prince rarely enjoyed with his own family. He got along well with Nicholl and adored Carol, who apparently kept a picture of the prince on her mobile phone. William had been very supportive when Carol's mother, Dorothy, passed away in July after a 4-month-long battle with lung cancer. Although he had never met Lady Dorothy, he knew how close Kate was to her 71-year-old grandmother, whom she regularly visited in Pangbourne. Her mother's death, for years after her father passed away, hit Carol hard. Dorothy had always been a strong, energetic, and charismatic woman, but when Ron died, she was terribly lonely. According to Jean Harrison, Dorothy was very sprightly, but she had always been very dependent on Ron, and she was immensely affected by his death. She never learned to drive, and without Ron she couldn't get about much. Then she got cancer, and it was Kate who called me up to tell me that she had died. She said that Dorothy had danced at her last birthday. It was obvious she was very close to her grandmother, and Dorothy would have been over the moon that Kate was dating Prince William, although Dorothy never told me. She knew how to keep a secret. According to Gary, Dorothy was very proud that Kate was dating the prince. To Mum, Kate's relationship with William was like all her Christmases had come at once, he told the Sun newspaper. We are from such humble stock, and then here is her granddaughter dating Prince William. She was so proud. Dudley Singleton recalled how Kate took care of her mother at the wake, which was held at Oakacre. William was not at the funeral service, during which Kate read a poem, and according to Mr. Singleton, at the reception afterwards, Kate chatted with the local villagers and her grandmother's friends who had come to pay their respects. I remember talking to her, and she was very quiet. She was very upset as she was very close to Dorothy, but she was dignified in her mourning. there was no great show of mourning, she didn't wear her grief on her sleeve. Kate was going places at this stage, she was with William, but she still made time to talk to the villagers and no one was excluded. Still, not for the first time in her life, Kate was at a crossroads. Another summer had passed, and as the year 2006 advanced to its close, Robinsons. Belle Robinson, who owns the Jigsaw clothing company with her husband, recalled, "She rang me up one day and said, 'Could I come and talk to you about work?' She genuinely wanted a job, but she needed an element of flexibility to continue the relationship with a very high-profile man and a life that she can't dictate." When an opportunity for an accessories buyer at Jigsaw Junior, the children's clothing division of the high street chain, came up, Belle suggested that the job might suit Kate perfectly. After a successful interview, she reported for her first day of work, arriving at the company's head office in Kew, immaculate in a crossover jersey dress and a pair of L.K. Bennett heels. Her 4 colleagues in the fashionable open-plan office were all female, glamorous, and ambitious, and each had been briefed ahead of Kate's arrival, not that she needed any introduction. By now she was a cover star, gracing the front pages of magazines and newspapers on an almost daily basis. Kate and William's recent holiday in Mustique had been major news, so the staff was well aware of her connections to their bosses. It was one of the reasons Kate was allowed to work a flexible week, although she was expected to work from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Although Kate tried to blend in, her arrival most mornings was far from low-key. These days she was driving a fancy silver Audi A3, the royals' car of choice, and had been given a discount on the luxury hatchback. It was more powerful than her Golf, but she could never outrun the paparazzi, who would stake out the entrance to the building, waiting for a picture. Belle recalled, there were days when there were TV crews at the end of the drive. We'd say, "Listen, do you want to go out the back way?" And she'd say, "To be honest, they're going to hound us until they've got the picture. So why don't I just go, get the picture done, and then they'll leave us alone." I thought she was very mature, and I think she's been quite good at neither courting the press nor sticking 2 fingers in the air at them. I don't think I would have been quite so polite. According to another colleague, Kate was pleasant from the outset and made friends quickly. We were aware of her connection to Belle and John, but she was never treated differently. She was very diligent and never late, and she had a very good work ethic. She made an effort to blend in and get on with the job. Kate's job was to select children's accessories, and she was responsible for purchasing bracelets, necklaces, ballet slippers, hair clips, and anything else that she thought would sell. She spoke to suppliers in the Middle East and worked closely with her team, making key decisions about the season's trends and what would sell both on the shop floor and on the website. It was her dream job, and she seemed to have a genuine talent for spotting eye-catching designs. She quickly became part of the team, and if not working out in the company gym at lunchtime, she would often eat lunch in the staff canteen. Kate's colleagues knew when William called because she would take the call outside so as not be overheard. She was very cautious, recalled a colleague. She got on with the people she worked with, and she was close to a girl she worked with called Katie Omi, but they weren't people she confided in. She never talked about William or their relationship, she was always very discreet. Being a family-run company, there were often social occasions such as barbecues and cricket matches held for the staff members and their families. Kate once attended a company fashion show and tea party at the Hurlingham Club, but despite her efforts to just be one of the team, an enterprising photographer used a long lens to snap her drinking a cup of tea, and the photograph was published in a glossy magazine. As a buyer, Kate had the opportunity to meet fashion writers and photographers when she went to press days at the new Bond Street office, and she was happy to talk with them. Kate and the other buyers came to see how the collection had come together, said a colleague. Kate was very comfortable among the fashion press and people were naturally curious, but she was just pleasant and confident. I remember her chatting to members of the press. She was very interested in the work they were doing. According to her friend Emma Sale, Kate loved the job. She always said she had great fun traveling to fairs across the country, where she would hunt for ideas and inspiration. Kate's 4-day-week arrangement, which had apparently annoyed some of the staff, meant that she could attend William's passing out parade at the end of December. Kate and her parents had been given VIP tickets to the ceremony, which in itself predictably sparked a flurry of media activity. It was the first time Kate had attended an official engagement in the company of the Queen and senior royals, and the fact that William had also invited her parents made it even more significant. Dressed in a scarlet dress coat and a wide-brimmed black hat, Kate beamed as she watched William graduate as a second lieutenant. He would be joining the Household Cavalry's Blues and Royals Regiment in the new year to train as a troop commander, like Harry. In her elegant fitted brown coat and Cossack-style fur hat, Carol stood next to her daughter, occasionally whispering an aside and glancing at her husband, who was sitting next to William's private secretary and most senior aide, Jamie Lowe the Pinkerton. Kate looked on as William paraded outside Old College in his smart dark blue tunic adorned with a red sash, signifying that his platoon had the honor of carrying the sovereign's banner. William found Kate in the crowd and smiled. "I love the uniform, it's so sexy," she whispered to her mother. The cameras were fixed on Kate, and a lip reader was commissioned by one broadcaster to relay her every word. Unfortunately, it was neither William's uniform nor Kate's comment, but Carol's unfortunate habit of rather innocently chewing nicotine gum throughout the ceremony that made the headlines in the newspapers the next day. She had been trying to quit smoking and was mortified that she had been captured chewing away. It was a taste of things to come, and Carol vowed she would not slip up next time. Within a matter of weeks, it was Christmas, and once again William and Kate prepared to spend the holiday apart. The Middletons had rented a country house in Perthshire, and Kate had invited William to join them for the New Year celebrations. She had decided not to go to Sandringham for the Boxing Day shoot this year so that she could be with her parents, who had both recently lost a parent, for along with the passing of Dorothy, Kate's other grandmother, Valerie, had also died that summer from lymphoma. Set on the outskirts of a life, Jordanstone House, an 18th-century manor house, was quite something. It was bitterly cold outside, a foot of snow adding a touch of magic to the scene. Inside, the Christmas tree lights glowed and log fires crackled in the spacious hearths. There was an all-weather tennis court, snooker room, an orangery, acres of surrounding parkland to explore, and 4-poster beds in most of the 13 bedrooms. William and Kate had been assigned the most luxurious of all, and she was looking forward to his arrival. However, when William telephoned on Boxing Day evening from Sandringham to tell her he wasn't coming, she was crushed. It was not like him to let her down at the last minute, and as it was only a few days before William was to relocate to Combermere Barracks in Windsor to start life as an army officer with the Blues and Royals, Kate was even more upset that she wouldn't be spending time with him. William tried to make it up to Kate by throwing a small party at Highgrove to celebrate her 25th birthday, but she was rattled. The Prince was in Windsor on her actual birthday, and when Kate left her apartment that morning, she looked tired and puffer-faced. Dressed in a pretty black and white print Topshop dress and her standard knee-high black suede boots, she had not expected to have to elbow her way past close to 20 photographers and TV cameramen who had been camped outside her front door since 6 a.m. Kate's birthday had prompted a fresh barrage of speculation that there would be an engagement announcement, and there was a panic to get the first pre-engagement picture. These days, a good frame of Kate was worth up to $30,000. The Princess of Wales's former press secretary, Patrick Jeffson, had fueled the rumor mill by claiming in a magazine article that Kate was set to be the next royal bride and that an announcement was imminent. To an observer, the signs were there. Bookmakers had stopped taking bets on when the couple would get engaged, and the high street store Woolworths had already started designing Will's and Kate wedding china. There was talk of Kate being given around-the-clock police protection, a step that historically accompanied an engagement, and there were police outside her home that morning to keep the press gang in check. Like the young Diana Spencer on the eve of her engagement to Charles, Kate was like a rabbit in headlights as she walked to her car. Usually unflappable, she looked genuinely shaken when some of the photographers chased after her as she accelerated out of the street. The memory of the Princess of Wales still lingered. It was just weeks since the official inquest into her death had been published and concluded that the car crash in Paris was a tragic accident. When William called to wish Kate a happy birthday, she was close to tears, and the prince instructed his aides to issue a statement complaining about the level of harassment Kate was experiencing. His message to the press was unequivocal: leave Kate alone. Ms. Middleton is a private individual and as such can expect to have the privacy and private life that would be enjoyed by any member of the public, the palace insisted. Even Prime Minister David Cameron remarked about his concern about the number of people on Kate Middleton's doorstep. There was no engagement, and deep down Kate feared there might not be one in the future. She was increasingly miserable at having to cope with the downside of her fame without William present, which only compounded her sense of loneliness. The pang of uncertainty she had felt since New Year's Eve had not subsided, and although she and William spoke regularly on the phone, she knew they would not be seeing much of each other over the coming months. After several weeks in Windsor, William was posted to Dorset for a 2.5-month tank commander's course. They managed to see one another on occasional weekends, and in March 2007, Kate and William were able to spend some proper time together on a skiing holiday at Zermatt in Switzerland with friends. Tucked away in their wooden chalet, Kate felt bold enough to voice her fears about their relationship, while William did his best to allay them, but they both knew this was a rocky patch. A long-distance romance didn't worry Kate, but she did have a problem with William coming to London to party instead of spending time with her, which had become a pattern since he had moved to Dorset. It seemed to her that William would rather go out and enjoy himself when he had a free weekend than spend time with her. When the press reported that William had spent the night flirting and dancing with another woman on a boys' night out at Bugis, Kate was furious and told him so. William, who can be headstrong and stubborn, seemed intent on having as much fun as possible, however, and when he was in Dorset, he often went out drinking with his platoon. For Kate, the final straw came as March drew to a close. William had been photographed partying at the Elements nightclub in Poole with 2 local girls, and to ensure her humiliation, his drunken antics were published in the tabloids. There were pictures of William dancing on a podium with a 19-year-old student, Lisa Agar, who claimed William was touchy, feely, and quite pissed. Kate knew that the worst thing was to back William into a corner, but the time had come when she felt she had no alternative but to deliver William an ultimatum. If they were together, she wanted his full commitment, otherwise the relationship was over. The strain between them was apparent at the Cheltenham races at the end of March. In their matching tweeds, Kate looked downcast and hid behind dark glasses, while William seemed distant from her. That Easter, early in April, they agreed to split for the second time in their 6-year-long courtship. Kate was heartbroken. William had spoken to his grandparents and his father about his concerns in the weeks leading up to the breakup. When he cancelled the New Year celebration with Kate at the 11th hour, his grandfather told him he had to make his mind up about marriage. The Duke of Edinburgh had enjoyed a long courtship with the young Princess Elizabeth before officially proposing 2 months after her 21st birthday. They would have married sooner had it not been for King George V insisting they wait until Elizabeth's coming of age. Charles, meanwhile, advised William not to hurry into marriage. Although he knew firsthand the dangers of procrastinating, he had also endured the pain of a very public divorce. The Queen advised William to take his time and not be rushed into marriage. The truth was, commitment frightened William and he had gotten cold feet. He was 24, loved his army lifestyle, and already said he didn't want to get married until I'm at least 28, or maybe 30. Apparently, he had been spooked by talk of courtiers looking for a suitable date for a royal wedding and china cups being made ahead of a royal engagement. Kate, however, was prepared to wait, but no one was going to make a fool of her. Fortunately, on the weekend of the split, she was at home with her family, who as always, was there to support her. Belle Robinson, who had read the news in the papers along with the rest of the country, told her not to come into work that week, while Carol, always a cool head in a crisis, advised Kate to give William time. She reassured Kate that William would be back and suggested they go on a holiday to Ibiza with some friends. To make matters worse, the papers that weekend were full of spiteful commentary suggesting that the breakup came down to the fact that Kate was too middle class for William and was not a suitable royal bride. Given her love and loyalty to the prince, this must have stung Kate like salt in a raw wound, and besides, it wasn't true. Although Carol's family was proudly working class, Michael's family could be linked to earls, countesses. A former Prime Minister, William Petty Fitzmaurice, the first Marquis of Lansdowne, who served as Prime Minister in Britain from 1782 to 1783, and royalty. Genealogists are able to trace the Middleton lineage to King Edward III through Sir Thomas Fairfax, a wealthy aristocrat born in the 17th century. Fairfax was a parliamentarian general who served under King Charles I and was married to Anne Gascoigne, a direct descendant of King Edward III. They had twin sons who gave rise to 2 lines of descent. Nicholas Fairfax, the elder son, was distantly related to Princess Diana's family, the Spencers, and William Fairfax, the younger twin, was related to the Middletons. The discovery meant that William and Kate are in fact 14th cousins once removed. But despite the family's distant connection with royalty, the Middletons came in for criticism, in particular Carol, who was labelled pushy and unashamedly ambitious. Some commentators believed the royal family had lost its greatest asset since Diana. Others compared Kate to Camilla, fearing that, like his father, William had just let his first true love slip through his fingers. Kate allowed herself the weekend to mourn the end of their romance. She was deeply touched to receive messages of support from Charles and Harry, who was preparing to go to Iraq, as well as the Duke of Edinburgh, who sent her his best wishes. She mustered all her strength and took her mother's advice to show William exactly what he was missing. The prince had marked the end of their relationship with a night out at Mahiki nightclub, a Polynesian-themed bar in Mayfair, and Kate followed suit. The club, famous for its outrageously expensive and flamboyant cocktails, was managed by Guy Pelly. Dressed in a thigh-skimming minidress, Kate let her hair down and ordered a round of pina coladas. Michael Evans, who worked at the club, recalled that Kate was a model of decorum. When Kate came to the club, she always queued and never expected free drinks. After hitting the dance floor, she spent the rest of the evening sitting on a swinging wicker seat talking to Guy. Until now, their friendship had been a touch frosty, but Guy had always been kind to Kate, protecting her from the jealous taunts of some snooty royal hangers-on who whispered doors to manuals when Kate walked into the club, a derogatory reference to her parents' airline industry careers. He knew William better than most and assured her that the prince cared for her a great deal. But Kate hadn't spoken with William, who was now drowning his sorrows back at the Elements nightclub with his new army friends. He could not have failed to notice the pictures of Kate in the daily newspapers. There she was, looking sensational, on front page after front page, enjoying nights out with her sister, with her friends, with people he didn't even know. She was photographed at a glamorous book launch in Mayfair with socialite Tara Palmer Tompkinson and leaving a party to celebrate a movie about adult sex toys. It was a far cry from the tweed-clad young woman who had stood unhappily next to him at Cheltenham just a few weeks before. Far from appearing heartbroken, she seemed to be reveling in the attention she received from the many male admirers who were lining up to dance with her. It seemed a case of what William could do, Kate could do better.